Welcome back to Between Bells. Sotheby's is taking us back to the 1950s. The company is offering rare concept cars by automaker Alfa Romeo at its upcoming Contemporary Art Evening auction on October 28th. And here to tell us about the three concept vehicles is Ian Kelleher, Chief Marketing Officer at RM Sotheby's, its automotive partner. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start off with the first of the concepts, the BAT5. So, can you tell us more about the vehicle?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So actually, it's referred to as BAT5. So the BAT stands for Berlina Aerodynamica Technica, and it was built in 1953. And the idea was Alfa Romeo wanted to create something that basically limited the amount of air flow and increased airflow, shall I say, and limited drag and increased the drag coefficient in each one of their cars. And so they started with this car in 1953 and debuted it at the Turin Auto Show in that same year.
These are really incredible. You can see the renderings on the screen. And after the Bat 5 came the Bat 7. So, what made that car different?
So each year they look to improve upon the previous design. And what makes all of these special, going from year to year, was that they were designed in the most forward-thinking way possible. So it was to eliminate any wind resistance that the car would create. And if you look at Bat 7, it's the most wild of all three of the designs. The giant fins on the rear actually work to move air in an efficient manner and lower the drag coefficient. So the drag coefficient on a car like this is actually 0.19, which is incredibly low for 1954, before they were using things like wind tunnels.
And how about the Bat 9? That's the third of the vehicles that's in this particular auction. What stands out to you in the design process of that vehicle?
So Bat 9 effectively was the most roadworthy, driving capable car of the three. You'll notice that it kind of looks the most like a road car. It has the best turning radius with the front wheels being able to move. Each one effectively was an improvement on the last, and obviously the culmination of that is in Bat 9. You have just a more futuristic, almost jet age looking car, but also far better visibility from the rear. It even has a spot for the number plate at the back. So individually, each one was a work of art. Individually, each one was an improvement on the last one. But when you look at all three together, it takes on a whole new meaning.
You know, I don't think you have to be a car enthusiast to appreciate these vehicles. They're gorgeous, and you're talking about the different design qualities. But for those who are not familiar, can you sort of speak to the importance of these vehicles?
So in the 1950s and kind of a post World War II global automotive community, you had auto manufacturers that were doing as much as they could to attract new buyers. And a lot of that was either through racing or it was through these concept cars, whether it was General Motors in the United States with their Autorama cars, the Motorama cars, or in this case with Alfa Romeo in Europe. I think it's important to keep in mind that these were built from 1953 to 1955. When you look at the futuristic styling of each of them, and you really put it in place at the time, and the fact that these cars all had headlights, they all were able to drive on the road. You could actually, in the case of Bat 7, they actually drove it to the auto show because it was so late in getting finished. So these weren't just wild designs that were not functional. They all have engines. They all actually will exceed 125 miles an hour at speed. So you were seeing basically this just amazing ingenuity come to life in each one of these cars for the public to basically consume and get enthusiastic about.
It's also pretty incredible that these cars have rarely been seen publicly over the last 30 years. Now that they're out for this particular auction, how much will the group of the concept vehicles be going for?
Well, we estimate the trio, the triptych, shall we say, of the cars to sell between 14 and $20 million. It's the first time they've ever been offered at auction as a triptych. It's the first time that they've been seen like this in an atmosphere where they could be purchased effectively. So it's exciting, and that's our pre-auction estimate, but we'll hopefully see if it exceeds that.
What was the decision-making process like to have them sold as a trio versus separately?
When you look at each one of them individually, they're stunning. They're spectacular. They each one of them is amazing. But when you assemble the three together and you look at them in this sort of triptych manner, where they really do resemble a work of art, it takes on another meaning, in the sense that each one is truly one of one, and each one was built independently of one another, and each one lived separately from one another for the bulk of their lives. So when you bring all three together and you're able to tie in all of the design cues between each of them, and you see them as a trio, it just makes sense. It hits you and it makes sense.
All right, Ian Kelleher, Chief Marketing Officer at RM Sotheby's. Thank you so much for joining us.